Hello, and welcome to another update video about Bitcoin as we are heading into the weekend. Yeah, a very boring day, really. The move down looks largely corrective, so the overall scenario is still intact. Still very simple, actually, very binary here. I highlighted to you that below 27,480, I'm looking at lower. It's a very clear level there, yeah. So we can give the yellow wave count a chance, but it has now moved too high to be very reliable. So we're getting sort of into very neutral space here. These times exist in price charts, so it's not always super clear. We're basically in a situation where a downtrend could change into an uptrend, and trend change situations are always the most ambiguous situations in price charts. But we can keep it very simple, and below 27,480, yeah, this resistance level, I'm looking at lower in the yellow wave count. That could be the more direct move to the downside, or an Elliott Wave triangle, which might stretch out a little bit sideways before it comes down. And however, if we break above 27,480, then we have to focus on the wide wave count and have to treat this as primary wave count, okay? There is this sort of gray area here above 27,480, but below the end of August high. This is going to be neutral space, you could say, yeah? This is neutral space. Here we have the yellow wave count in an unlikely situation, so it's very unreliable. Above 27,480, the yellow wave count that sends us lower. However, it is not yet invalidated, and that is the most ambiguous space that you can imagine. So yeah, I think it's just, we just need to be careful here. There are a few setups that have come up today, so we can look at that, but I don't see a very clear short setup from here, I have to say. It can still work out, but it has just moved up too high to be very reliable still, in my opinion. What would be potentially interesting is, even though that is just the alternative wave count, it could provide an interesting entry point for anybody who wants to trade it on the long side. As I always say, you typically always have a bullish and a bearish wave count on any chart, well, mostly. And you don't always only need to trade the primary wave count, right? If the alternative wave count, for example, which is always a likely option, because I don't show you the unlikely options, right? But if the alternative wave count provides a low risk, high reward entry point, then it might make sense to trade the alternative wave count, because it's only the market essentially that is deciding if the primary or the alternative is going to play out. What we can decide ourselves as traders, investors, is where do I enter, yeah, and where do I set my stop loss. So I can control my entry, I can control my exit, I can control the reward to risk ratio that I want to trade in a setup. That's what we can decide. We should not try to lay our, let's say, success as trader into the hands of the universe, right? By trying to trade only, let's say, the more probable count. That's not how it works, okay? You cannot define probabilities. It's very subjective assessment. What is objective, as I always say, are the Fibonacci levels. And therefore, there is a potential setup here. Yeah, obviously, yellow wave count is clear. Yeah, should send us down lower. This will become very unlikely above 27,480. We discussed that at length in previous videos. Everybody should know about the yellow wave count now. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. The white wave count is a bullish pathway. I don't like it, but it's possible as a diagonal. And that would be here, wave 1 to the upside, wave 2 to the downside. Now we have potentially a third wave running, then a fourth wave and a fifth wave. So, and there in this third wave, there might be an entry point, or at least a reasonable long trade setup. Let's call it like that. The thing is, after 5 waves up, as I said, we don't have confirmation that the lasting low has been established. Needs to be 5 waves up, 3 waves down. Someone asked me in the comments, why does it have to be 5 waves up, 3 waves down? It's very simple. That's just the market structure. That's just Elliott Wave telling us that with 5 waves to the upside and 3 waves down, that is how we recognize a trend. A 5 wave move to the upside followed by a 3 wave pullback is the most simple way how a trend can be defined, okay? So you can't do it with 3 waves up, okay? It's not, you don't have enough, and then 1 wave down. That's not how it works. It's 5 up, 3 down. That's 5 waves into the trend direction, 3 waves, a counter trend move. And that's the most simple way how a trend can be established. The most simple form. You cannot do it more simply, and that's why this structure is so important. It's also a Fibonacci relationship between 5 and 3. Okay, so yeah, and that's what we need to see. There's no way around it. No way around it. 3 waves up, it's not enough. It needs to be 5. Okay. That doesn't mean you couldn't trade within the 3rd wave if you want to. I mean, that's essentially up to you. It's just not that reliable. This will be the next very reliable setup, in my opinion, if it forms. But on the way up, obviously, I did explain that to you. We have here potential pullback area for a B wave. Okay. So A, B, C in wave 3, because this is a diagonal at best to the upside. So I highlight that in orange to increase the higher risk, because at the moment it is fairly ambiguous, the structure. But this is something, you know, when we get quite deep into the orange area where a potential long trade might be reasonable. You have to decide yourself if you're comfortable with that. Or after the 1-2 setup in wave C. Yeah, so that might form over the weekend. I don't know, probably not over the weekend, but it could do. And if we see a first small impulse, and wave 2 to the downside, if it's clear, could provide a reasonable trade, at least in the 3rd wave. Advantage of waiting for the 1-2 setup is that we have confirmation that the C wave has started. So it doesn't provide the best entry point. Yeah, this would be here, but it's also less ambiguous. When we get 5 waves up, 3 waves down from here, probably 5 waves into, probably can, yeah, it's hard to say. We would probably be looking for, I mean, it depends on where we bottom here in wave B, but if it's bottomed already, then I'd be looking, wave 1 could reach sort of between 27,160 and 27,470, okay? And then a wave 2 pullback. Yeah, so that's sort of what I'd be watching. Could of course go higher, but the thing is the setup will show if we have a 5 wave up here in wave 1 and 3 waves down on the smaller scale. So that's going to be the next setup, which is more reliable than trading a B wave low, okay? But it's not as reliable as waiting for the large 5 up and the large 3 down, okay? So, you know, it's essentially, you need to understand this is a small time frame, smaller time frame setups, and wave counts invalidate more frequently. But they can provide nice entry points, low risk, high reward entry points on lower time frames. I think it will be a boring weekend. We'll see how it turns out. I'm still generally focusing on lower, but that doesn't mean that there couldn't be a reasonable long entry still. Okay, from a reward to risk point of view here. Okay, so yeah, that's my update about Bitcoin. I don't think there is anything else to add. I've run out of things to say. So yeah, I hope you liked the update. If you did, please hit the like button, leave a comment and subscribe. And if you really like the content, then please check out the channel membership. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.